I am a man of honor, integrity, and promise. I pursue all righteousness. I love my family. I will not put my family in harm's way. There is nothing that will keep me from doing the right thing. I am an ambassador of hope and a man of discipline. I am a man worth following. I am a TYRO.
Welcome to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Catherine TYRO. And for those of you who don't know who we are, Ron and I had our own 15-year journey through the prison system. When Ron went to prison, me and my family, we went to prison too. We just did time on the outside. But through that experience, we learned a lot. We learned all kinds of things that helped our family become strong and thriving. And those are the things that through the TYRO program that we want to impart into you and your life so that this could be just an event and not a lifestyle for you.
And I am a TYRO, gentlemen. What is a TYRO? A TYRO is a man worth following, a man who can be taken at his word. And that's what I learned in 15 years of prison, to become a man of my word. And that's what we want to impart to you guys. So what we want to talk to you about in this segment is about breaking the cycle of incarceration. How do you stop your children from coming to prison? How do you stop the next generation in your family to looking like you right now?
Well, what it takes is, the first place you have to start is you have to stop coming to prison. So let this be a one time, and if you've been in more than one time, let this be the last time that you experience incarceration. And so on this show this week, we're going to share with you kind of an overview of what the cycles of incarceration, each phase is. But in the coming weeks, we're really going to break down each one of those phases to really help you identify it, recognize it, and overcome it.
Because if we can do it, so can you. So hang on, hold on, because we're about ready to bring you something that's going to change and impact your life forever.
We'll be right back with more information about the 10 phases of the cycle of incarceration, so stay tuned.
TYRO Dads will help you to see who you really are on the inside by coming to terms with your past, present, and future. You will begin to move forward by using your time on the inside to transform yourself. We know you are not the only one serving time. Your family is too. Overcoming the issues that existed prior to and during incarceration are often more than many families can survive. TYRO Dads has a unique method of reaching and healing families based on Ron and Kathy TYRO's own personal experience with incarceration. TYRO Dads works exclusively with incarcerated fathers who have minor children. The program lasts for 10 weeks and focuses on intensive character development. You'll be taught to take responsibility for your actions, to own it. You will be prepared to overcome the obstacles of your incarceration and transition back into your home and community, both successfully and permanently. Upon successful completion of this program, you will earn the title of TYRO, which means a warrior, someone learning something new. You'll be one of the honored, a man worth following.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Kathy TYRO. And today we're talking about what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks, and that's how to break the cycle of incarceration. But today we're really going to break down what is the cycle of incarceration.
You know, Kathy, talking about this segment here, literally, and coming to an understanding in my own personal life and the journey I had to do, you know, in 15 years of incarceration, it was hard, and it is still hard to look back at the phases of breaking the cycle of incarceration that I literally had to go through to become the man I am today. And I'm hoping that what we'll be able to impart today is going to help men and fathers inside the prisons today really take a look and examine themselves to see the phases of what they're going through. You know, the very first phase that I went through when they sent me to jail, from jail to prison, is shock. You know, I had never experienced this place. I mean, just the total deer in the headlights experience that I was experiencing. And
couldn't believe it's happening.
I couldn't believe it was happening. You know, in fact, it went from shock to denial. When I was telling myself, this is not happening, this is not happening, you know, I could not imagine this ever for my life and for my family's life. You know, I knew, you know, I mean, looking back, you know what, I was making some very poor choices, and my thinking was terrible. I had no concept of what it meant to be a man of honor, a man of integrity. And
I remember that too.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't be taken at my word. So from shock to denial, and I tell you, after denial came anger. You know, I was mad at the world. I blamed everybody for my situation. I wasn't taking any responsibility for the choices I made that led me into this thing called prison or penitentiary lifestyle. But then after anger, I went through grief. You know, I went through I believe a state of depression. You know, I was mourning the loss of you, of my children, and the freedom to live life with you guys. I went through a thing of, you know, I died, or things were dying around me, and there was nothing that I could do to help resuscitate or help things stay living and grow in my life. But then after the grieving process, I had to come to a place of where I had to accept it. You know, I came to a place of acceptance in this. So I went from shock. From shock, I went to denial. From denial, I went to anger. From anger, I went to grief. But then the last one I had to go through was acceptance. And when I came to a place in prison where, okay, now that I'm here, now what?
And I remember that it was particularly difficult because you went to prison for something you didn't do, but it was in that situation you had to really recognize that there were things you were doing that caused you to end up in that place.
And that is a really hard lesson to learn. You know, here I am screaming and saying I didn't do it, but the truth is, I was doing things that were not exemplaring a well life, a man of honor, a man, a true husband, a true father. So I had to come to a place of acceptance. But then it was after that acceptance that I had to really say to myself, when I said, now what? What do I do with this experience? What am I going to do? Am I going to become bitter, or am I going to become better? And it was really the choice that I made to become better. And that was where we came up with TYRO. How do you become a man of honor despite where you're at? And here I am today, a man worth following, a man who can be taken at my word.
Right. And so the first thing I remember when you came to that place of really decision is, okay, we got to do something different, was really recognizing that, you know what, in spite of the fact that I'm innocent of what I was convicted of, I was living a crazy life and doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and it led me to this place in life. And so when we think about getting past that culture of incarceration and that cycle, I think that's the first phase.
You know, and once you do accept it and you come to a place of where you own your story, when you own it and you own the situation that you're in, because I believe that nothing happens to us unless we create it or we allow it to happen in our sphere of influence. You know, I now know what a change agent means. And when I came to that place of acceptance, I began manifesting or working in the office of becoming a change agent, that despite my environment, I was going to change me from inward out. But my acceptance, I had to come to a place of where if I accept this as a reality or a lifestyle versus an event in my life, because I knew it was my reality,
right,
but I had to make a decision. Is this going to be my lifestyle, or is it going to be an event? For those of you men who've got more than one prison number, or just constantly in and out of the hole, or always in trouble, this has become your lifestyle. You know, you chose to relive this experience over and over again, versus the other side. When you come to a place of acceptance, you choose to say, you know what, I'm going to become better, not bitter.
So what are the phases? So once you come to that point, Ron, of really recognizing that, okay, I have to make a choice here.
Well, the first one, you just said it. The first one is recognize. You know what, I'm here, now what? I recognize that the choices that I made led me up to this moment in my life that caused it to go awry. And I have to accept that. So the first one was I recognize it, I own it, and now what? And what do I do? Now that I owned it, what do I do? Well, I begin to rebuild. Rebuild what? The way I think, the way I walk, the way I talk, who I associate with. I rebuild my entire environment from within to without. That the way I'm thinking now, the rebuilding of this structure, and we're talking about the way a man thinks, is beginning, it will exemplify from the people I associate myself with. So we went from recognizing to rebuilding. Well, then after rebuilding, I had to go to a place of where now I got to renew my thinking. I got to change the way I think. I got to start practicing something different. And as a TYRO, we teach men that practice does not make perfect, but it makes permanence. And
but part of renew, too, was you began to renew relationships. Renew relationship with me, with the boys, with your parents, with your friends.
my
I mean,
associates.
Really, yeah.
You know what? And that's right. Everything that I was trying to do inside would now become exemplified outside. Because if I was changing inside, but my relationship with you was not reflecting that, then what I'm
not
doing
real
inside,
change.
it isn't working, whatever it is I'm trying to do.
Right.
So I went from recognize to rebuild to renew. And then the last one was, well, not even the last one, but second to last is to reinvent. I got to reinvent myself. Now, here's the craziest thing I've ever said before. I was in the best place I could ever be in my life at that time in my life. Penitentiary saved not only me, but it saved our marriage. It saved my family. It saved me from me, right? I was able to reinvent myself to become a real dad, to become a real husband. I got to become a real son. You know, I became employable while I was incarcerated, of all places, right? So I got to reinvent myself, had an extreme makeover from within, without. And the last one, and this is it, this is how you know you've arrived, when you begin to reinvest. When you begin to reinvest right where you're at into the lives of others around you, where people are attracted to you because you're exemplifying what goodness really is. You're not exemplifying manipulation anymore. You're not forcing people to want to be by you. They want to be by you because good always attracts good.
So as we're talking about, you know, these 10 phases of the cycle of incarceration, it sounds so simple. It's like, okay, well, I go from this to this to this to this. But these 10 phases each have a time period. They each have their own unique things, identifiers within that phase, things that are happening to you, things that are happening around you and within you. And each of those requires some kind of action in order to be able to overcome those things. And so in the coming weeks, Ron is really going to break down each one of those phases and what it means to be in that phase and what it means to overcome that phase, what it took for him, and now what he's been able to capture so that he can pass on to you so that you can also break this cycle of incarceration, not just for you, but for your children. And so as we come back after this quick message, we're going to talk about what happens on the outside. So we talked about the cycle of incarceration and what happens on the inside. I'm going to give you a really brief overview of what's happening on the outside, so stay tuned.
Playing catch, basketball, laughing and enjoying each other's company. These are all normal things on the outside, but many times are missed in a visitation setting. TYRO Dads brings the same fun experience to the inside through Family Days. As a TYRO Dad, you have the opportunity to participate in this fantastic event. Family Day is designed to allow fathers and families to engage with each other through activities designed to stimulate communication, learning, and play. Family Days will not only be a highlight for you, but for your children as well. The Ridge Project has strategically developed Family Day as an opportunity to help you connect with your child throughout your separation and help both of you develop skills to continue building your relationship when you return home.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Kathy TYRO.
And I'm Ron TYRO. And we've been talking about what it means to go through a cycle of incarceration, what that looks like. And in the previous episode, I talked about what it was for me to go in there, what it looked like.
Yeah, and now we want to talk about what does it look like on the outside. I mean, we're going to talk about what does it look like for me, what it looked like for our children, and what does it look like as Ron transitions back home. When we talk about the cycle of incarceration, it's not all taking place just inside those four walls and the bars inside. As you're going through and navigating through on the inside, these different cycles of the shock, the denial, the anger, the grief, the acceptance, and then you come to the place of a point of decision on whether or not you're going to stay there and you're going to repeat it or whether you're going to do change. I mean, your family is going through those same cycles and they're coming to the same place of, are we going to continue to live like this? Are we going to go back asleep? Mentally, emotionally go back asleep and continue on what we were doing? Or are we going to let this be our wake-up call? And are we going to begin to do something different?
So we're doing time together.
Yeah, exactly. So we're doing time together and we're at different, the thing that's really a struggle, not really a struggle, a challenge. There it is, a challenge. The thing that is a challenge is that as you're going through these different phases and your family on the outside is going through the same phases, but at a different pace. And so either you might be accelerated through these phases, or they might be accelerating through these phases. And so you really have to learn to navigate through each phase in a way that helps you overcome it, but also inspires your family to continue on in their journey wherever they're at.
You know, sometimes I know we can't take it personal. If the guy inside seems to be excelling and doing very well and rehabilitating himself and going through what he goes through, don't take it personal when your family's still struggling at a different level, at a different pace.
Because one of the things that we quickly realized is that Ron was like, wow, he's in an environment where everybody else is going through this cycle with him, these phases with him. Maybe again at different paces and different stages, but they're all having a similar experience. On the outside, your family, not everybody that we're associated with is going through these same cycles. And so we're having to navigate through that feeling more isolated, more disconnected. So it may take your family on the outside a little bit longer to get through some of those phases. But once you get to the decision point and you decide you want to have change, it's also the same steps. And that is first to recognize how you got where you are, and then begin to rebuild inside of you the character traits and the stamina that you're going to need to really overcome this. Begin to renew the relationships that you have with the father of your children or with your husband. And then after you begin to renew and rebuild those things, then you have to begin to reinvent yourself. Because, you know, the fact of the matter is, Ron wasn't the only one making poor choices. And I had to really look at, oh my goodness, what is it I'm doing? And what has become the results of my actions? And what is it I really want to do? And who do I really want to be? So as I began to reinvent myself based on my own strengths, my own desires, my own passions, my own potential, then I began to reinvest in our relationship, reinvest in our community, reinvest in myself and in my children. And all of those things together is what caused us to be able to break the cycle of incarceration or prison. And one of my prisons was poverty. So it wasn't just, you know, the four walls, and it wasn't just the bars, but it was also other things in my life. And so as we break down each of these in the coming weeks, you do not want to miss this opportunity to really identify what cycle you're in, what phase you're in, and what you need to overcome that. So as we come back, we're going to talk more about the impact this has on your kids and kind of the cycle of incarceration and breaking the cycle of incarceration and why it's so important to break this and to recognize it to be able to build strong, healthy children.
So stay tuned, because we're about ready to go a little bit more deeper into what we've been talking about, but really to help you overcome whatever it is you're facing.
Completion of TYRO Dads is just the beginning of the opportunities available to you. As a TYRO Dad, you will be eligible to participate in workforce strengthening services to help prepare you for employment and open the doors to economic stability for you and your family. The workforce strengthening program starts with job ethics training. Once completed, you may be eligible to receive training to acquire your commercial driver's license while still inside prison. If getting a CDL is not for you, then there is also a welding training program you may be eligible for. As more programs are being added, there really is something for almost everyone.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Kathy TYRO.
I'm Ron TYRO, and we've been talking about breaking the cycle of incarceration. Personally, we were talking about what happened to me when I went to prison, and then for Kathy, what happened to her when I went to prison, when she went to prison, on the streets versus inside, and the things that we had to experience to get where we're at today. And we're talking about phases of incarceration here. You know what happens. But now we want to talk about our children. Because sometimes dads or guys, when you're in prison, you know, the reason why we went to prison is because why? Number one reason?
You're selfish.
Selfish. It's all about me. And so we forget that though when we're experiencing, we're going through all these phases, shock, denial, anger, grief, and then rebuilding and reinventing and all the 5 R's and so forth. Kathy, or the wives, is going through the same type of scenario that we're going through. But more importantly now, we're going to talk about our children, because they too are going through something that sometimes we forget, because we're so caught up in our own experience, we forget that others whom we love dearly too are having their own experience.
So many times when people talk about the cycles of incarceration or the phases of incarceration, they talk about, okay, well, you go in and you're processed. And then after you're processed, you spend so much time in that reception center before you go to your home institution. Then you go to your home institution, then you go through programming, then you go through reentry, and then you go home. So, that's the process of incarceration, but that's not the cycle of incarceration. And if we don't recognize the different phases and the cycle, then we're going to continue to repeat it. And those that lose the most are the children. So your children are going through this cycle of incarceration with you. And so they don't even really understand, because most of the time we don't understand what phase we're in, and that there's phases that we go through emotionally, mentally, physically of incarceration.
I've met men in that's coming home from prison, and even while I was inside prison, who would never tell their children they're incarcerated. And to me, that is doing them a disservice. Right. I met men who are telling their families that they're doing a tour in Iraq, or they're out somewhere, they're in a ministry, they're somewhere. But honesty begins right there, right now. Because your children are experiencing something, and we're talking about being, growing up fatherlessness, fatherless.
And the truth is, this cycle of incarceration, it's going to happen no matter what. So all you're doing is delaying their ability to go through this cycle, because someday they're going to find out.
And we want our children to grow and thrive despite this experience.
Right.
Because in this experience, they can really have victory over it. So when life is throwing bigger things at them, they've overcame this, and that will give them the strength and the courage and the confidence they need to be able to face anything in their life as they grow up to become adults and overcome it. The first phase that I can only imagine, our sons, when I didn't come home that day.
Right.
I did not come home that day, and they were asking you, where's Daddy? Where's Dad at? And the look on their face, I can only imagine what they look like. That shock.
Like, Dad's not home. What in the world?
And then, having their anger, their denial that they went to. Dad's not in prison. My dad's, we have a lot of families and a lot of kids will even start telling lies to their own children where their dad's at. And, we want to encourage
or
you.
teach their tell their children the truth, but then teach their children to lie about where their dad is. And so the same thing, that you're causing your children to be stuck in one of these phases of incarceration. And the whole idea, the whole goal is to move yourselves and your children, your entire family, through each one of these phases so that you can overcome the incarceration and go on stronger, where you're building the assets that are going to help you become strong and successful in every other area of life.
And we're talking about becoming a TYRO family, a TYRO family that recognizes right where they're at, and they begin to rebuild right where they're at. Right? Then they renew right where they're at. Then they reinvent right where they're at. And then at the end, they reinvest. Everything that they've acquired, everything that they've overcome, now they're able to reinvest into others so they can help the people around them, the children around them, never have to experience this type of life experience or event in their life.
We've all heard the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that is so true in this circumstance, because if we lead our children through each phase and we help them become stronger and get to the place of reinvest, get all the way to the end of this cycle and become stronger, then we are causing them to be so strong that as they go through life, that we have now stacked the deck for them to be successful. But if we keep them stuck, then we really we're killing their potential. We're killing their joy, their laughter. We're causing them to become stagnant, and we're causing their growth to become retarded. And so that means that they're going to be stuck in this, whether it's grief, whether it's anger, whether it's shock, whether it's denial, whatever it is. We don't want to see our kids stuck there.
It's okay if your son is angry. That's okay, but we have to help him navigate through that.
Successfully experience it, not cut it off.
And then if they're in denial, Dad, you're not in prison. It's our job to help them come to a place of where they can recognize this is a reality, but it is not a lifestyle. Right. And that takes courageous conversations. And we want to encourage you fathers, you men out there, to have that courageous conversations among yourselves. Figure out where are you at in your in your own evolution of this experience called prison. Because if you can't recognize where you're at, then there's no way that you can get to the next.
Can't experience healing.
Yeah, you can't experience healing to get to where you need to be so that you can bring or reinvest in others around you.
Mm-hmm. You are going to not want to miss the coming weeks where we really break down each one of these phases. It is so important that you understand the place that each one of these phases has in your relationship to your children. It has in your cycle of life and in your ability to move beyond your present circumstance and into a place of strength.
And it's going to take, this is hard work. This is really hard work to be able to look yourself in the mirror and recognize right where you're at so that you can begin to reinvest into others, give back. No longer an extractor in life, but a co-creator with all those around you. So stay tuned, come back, because we guarantee you what we're about ready to give you is going to help you become the TYRO that you need to be.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Kathy TYRO. And this week we've been talking about breaking the cycles of incarceration. We've talked about all 10 phases just briefly to give you a sneak peek about what's coming in the coming weeks.
And so we just want to go back and let's just revisit what we hit upon. The first phase was shock.
Yeah.
You know, what happens when you first get incarcerated? You first go into county jail, the shock and awe experience. And then the next one was the denial. You know, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here. And the next one was anger. Man, I tell you, you want to blame everybody but yourself for your own situation. And the next one was grief, because when you come into a place of what you created for all those around you to experience, you know, you begin to become sad, you know, and if you're really looking at it, it is. And then the last one was acceptance. You come to a place of where, you know what, okay, I'm here, now what? What am I going to do? But here's the decision point that you got to face.
Because once you come past acceptance, then you make that decision, and either if you decide to just be complacent and okay, I'm just going to do my time and then not make any positive change, you're going to end up repeating that cycle. Or you make a decision to make change. And if you make change,
that's right,
then the first step is recognize. You've got to recognize what happened that actually got you where you are. And then after you recognize it, then you are empowered to rebuild, to begin to rebuild your own positive character traits, and then renew.
I like that empower, that word you use.
Empower. And then renewing relationships, and renewing the way that you think, the way that you respond to the world around you, so that you can really reinvent yourself, really leveraging your own gifts, your talents, your passions for positive change, which then enables you to reinvest in the lives of those around you. And that is the TYRO way. That is breaking the cycle of incarceration and coming out on top and leaving people behind you.
Everybody wants to be taken at their word. Well, that's what it means to be a TYRO. And if you're not a TYRO, we want to encourage you to sign up for the TYRO curriculum, the TYRO program in your institution. Thank you for joining us on TYRO TV, and thank you for allowing us to be part of your journey. Until next time, we are rooting for you.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of integrity.
I am a man of faith. I am the antidote.
I am a man of discipline. I am a leader.
I am strong.
I am a man worth following.
I am a TYRO.